What if I told you a pink donut box could save lives? This bright pink box of donuts hides a secret history of war, survival, and the American dream. It's the insane true story of how Cambodian refugees conquered California's donut scene, all thanks to one man known as the Donut King. Stay tuned, because this tale has million-dollar highs and jaw-dropping lows. Our story begins in 1975. Cambodia is in chaos. A brutal regime called the Khmer Rouge has taken over, and they are slaughtering people by the millions. Families are desperate to escape. Amid the panic, one young man manages to squeeze onto the last flight out of Cambodia. Literally, the last passenger plane to leave as the capital falls. His name is Ted Ngoy. He's 30 years old, fleeing for his life with only the clothes on his back. He arrives as a refugee at a military base in California with $0 and a heart full of hope. Ted finds himself at Camp Pendleton in Southern California, along with tens of thousands of other refugees who just escaped hell. He's finally safe, but now what? He doesn't speak English and needs to support his family. So Ted hustles 3 jobs at once, one of them pumping gas at a gas station. And guess what's next door to that gas station? A donut shop. One slow night, a coworker hands Ted a donut to try. He takes a bite of that warm, fluffy, sugary dough, and boom, his taste buds light up and a crazy new dream is born. Ted discovered the magic of the American donut. Ted marches straight into that donut shop and asks the owners, "Can I buy this place?" They laugh in his face. "Slow down, buddy. Go learn how to make donuts first." They tell him to get a job at Winchell's Donuts, the big chain at the time, and Ted does exactly that. He works at Winchell's and joins their manager training program. Back then, Winchell's had an amazing deal. If you trained for a few months and learned the business, they'd give you keys to manage one of their shops. Ted works day and night, learns every recipe, every trick. In a few months, he becomes the manager of a Winchell's in Newport Beach. Not bad for a guy who just arrived in America. But Ted isn't satisfied being someone else's manager. Remember that first little donut shop by the gas station? With some savings and pure determination, Ted goes back and actually buys it outright. Mic drop. The refugee who had nothing now owns a donut shop of his very own. And he doesn't stop there. Within a year, he buys another shop, then another. Ted is on a roll, a jelly roll. By 1979, just 3 years after landing in California, Ted Ngoy is a millionaire. That's right, in 3 years he went from refugee camp to rolling in dough, literally. It's the ultimate rags to riches story, the American dream with extra sprinkles.
But Ted's success isn't just about getting rich. He remembers all those people fleeing war, like he did, who need a fresh start. Ted has a huge heart for his Cambodian community. As refugees keep arriving in the late 70s and 80s, Ted steps up. He sponsors hundreds of Cambodian refugees to come to America. He gives them jobs in his shops and teaches them the donut trade. Ted starts leasing his shops to these families for cheap, so they can become business owners too. He's basically creating an army of Cambodian donut entrepreneurs. Shop by shop, family by family, this refugee community seizes their shot at the American dream, with donuts as the ticket. Soon, Cambodian-owned donut shops are popping up on every corner in California. It becomes a whole ecosystem. One of Ted's cousins starts a company to supply flour and sugar to all the donut shops. Another relative starts a company making those donut boxes. And speaking of boxes, have you noticed something special about donut boxes in California? They're all pink. This isn't a coincidence. It's because of Ted's donut empire too. Why pink? Simple. The Cambodian bakers discovered pink boxes were cheaper than white ones, by about 10 cents each. When you're selling thousands of donuts, those pennies add up. In Ted's words, we donut makers were all about saving money. Why buy the expensive white box? Save a few pennies and make big bucks. The pink boxes were leftover stock from a local supplier, so they sold them dirt cheap. And they looked fun, so pink donut boxes became the norm across Southern California. Pretty soon, that bright pink box became an icon of California donuts. You see one and instantly know there are sweet treats inside. By the 1980s, Ted Ngoy is living large. His donut empire, named Christie's Donuts after his wife, is huge. At his peak, he owned dozens of shops and was worth about $20 million. That's roughly $100 million in today's money. He bought a 7,000-square-foot mansion in Mission Viejo, a vacation home by Big Bear Lake. The guy even had a timeshare condo in Acapulco. Talk about living the high life. His success was so massive that Dunkin' Donuts basically stayed out of California. The independent Cambodian shops dominated the market. Los Angeles became the donut capital of the world, with more donut shops per person than anywhere else. And incredibly, an estimated 80% of all donut shops in Southern California were, and still are, owned by Cambodian refugee families. Ted Ngoy's vision didn't just make him rich, it transformed an entire community and industry. Ted became a hero to Cambodian-Americans. They nicknamed him the Donut King, and he was a celebrity in the community. Think about it. A few years earlier, these folks were running for their lives from the Khmer Rouge. Now they're thriving business owners, sending their kids to school, buying homes, all because of donuts. Behind each mom-and-pop donut shop with a smiling family at the counter, there's a hidden story of survival. Genocide, escape, rebuilding. The pink donut box became a symbol of that journey. A little box of hope and new beginnings. But just when it looked like nothing could stop the Donut King, disaster struck. Ted Ngoy had one big weakness: gambling. He loved the thrill of casinos and betting, especially in Las Vegas. At first, he could afford his gambling losses, but the addiction grew. He started betting bigger and bigger, even using his donut shops as collateral. And then, one by one, he lost them. He literally bet away his entire empire, every penny, every shop. Ted's family fell apart too. He and Christie divorced. By the 1990s, Ted Ngoy had lost everything. He moved back to Cambodia, broke and humbled, far from the mansion he once owned. The rise and fall of Ted Ngoy is one of the most dramatic comeback downfall stories you'll ever hear. Yet, the story doesn't end on a down note. Because the legacy Ted left behind was bigger than one man. All those Cambodian-run donut shops kept thriving even after Ted was gone. The refugees he mentored had become successful shop owners in their own right, and they passed their businesses on to their kids. Today, the second and third generation donut kids are carrying on the tradition. They're modernizing it, adding new flavors, Instagram-worthy designs, even vegan donuts. But they honor the groundwork laid by their parents and by Ted. For example, one of Ted's own nieces, Mei Li Tao, still runs the famous DK's Donuts in Santa Monica, a family donut shop going strong for 4 decades. She's even launched a modern brand called Donut Princess LA, with over-the-top donut creations and online delivery. In every pink box she packs, Mei Li says, you can feel her Uncle Ted's story. The idea that donuts gave their family everything, and she's not alone. Countless Cambodian-American families across California continue to run donut shops, innovating while preserving the legacy. The pink boxes are still everywhere, so much that when one shop tried using a different color, customers complained, "Where's the pink box?" It's become tradition, so next time you see a box of donuts, especially a pink box, remember this. It represents an incredible journey. A journey from the killing fields of Cambodia to the sunny streets of California. A journey of refugees who turned pastries into prosperity and tragedy into triumph. All because one man took a bite of a donut and said, "This is my chance." If this story blew your mind or touched your heart, smash that like button and share it with a friend. Drop a comment telling us your favorite donut. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing true stories and wild adventures. We've got plenty more in store, and you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, life can be as sweet as a donut. So keep dreaming big. See you next time.